Welcome back to the Armchair Coaching Podcast. My name is Coach Sheffer. I'm the offensive line coach at Brentsville District High School in Nokesville, Virginia. And today we have another great guest. But before I introduce our guest, if you are viewing this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to this video. It will help our channel grow. And if you want to listen to this in podcast form, we are available on multiple different platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker. There's a bunch of other different platforms. You can find all that information below in the description. All right, so today we have yet another good coach. He is a third-generation coach with 35 years of experience. And Coach, was all of that in Oregon?
No, most of it. Well, that's not true. About half was in Southern California.
Okay. Currently the head coach and athletic director at Gold Beach High School in Oregon. If you are on Twitter, you have probably seen him before. Welcome into the podcast, Coach Kevin Swift. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, my pleasure. A little correction. I'm the AD. I stepped down as coach at the end of last year.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons, and I may go into them during this podcast. So, I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited. Any time you get a chance to talk football and share ideas and knowledge with the profession, I think it's huge. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I've been following you on Twitter for quite a while, and you and I have had some dialogue between each other once in a while, and you've been very helpful to me, and I really appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in because I'm excited to hear this. This is a question I ask every one of my guests because I am fascinated by everybody's coaching story because every coach has a unique story, right? And so could you tell us your coaching journey, basically how did it start, and then tell us how you eventually ended up where you are now?
I'm third generation coach. My father, who recently passed in July, was an educator coach for 52 years, taught science and math, and was a football coach, track coach. And I kind of knew at like third, fourth grade that that was kind of the career path I wanted to choose. My parents both actively tried to talk me out of it. Just the same way I tried to talk my eldest daughter out of being a teacher. And I think you try to talk your kids out of that because we all know the crosses that educators and coaches bear financially, time-wise, commitment, hardships on family. And I think when I finally said, yeah, I'm going to do it anyways, they immediately jumped on board and were supportive. I started off as a defensive backs coach at Claremont College, which seems like 1,000 years ago. And I coached Division III football for 5 years, 2 of them at Claremont McKenna, and then the last 3 at University of Redlands, where I was a defensive coordinator, at that time the youngest defensive coordinator in the nation. And at the end of those times, I kind of discovered that while coaching Division III was a lot of fun, they weren't paying assistant coaches in the 80s anything, and I needed to find a way to support myself and eventually a wife and a family. So I returned to Orange County, where I was born and raised, kind of a pretty good little hotbed for high school football, and started off as a defensive mercenary. I was in the process of getting my credential, and so I would long-term sub at a school. I would start in August, and I would go till semester, and I would coordinate their defense and improve their defense. And then in February, I would hop on a plane and go off on a surfing adventure, and then come back in June and either return to that same school to continue building the defense, or a lot of times another school offered a better opportunity, and I would go to those schools. Along that path, I rubbed elbows with a lot of really good coaches and learned the game, and really fine-tuned myself as a pretty good defensive coordinator. You know, in Oregon, I'm known for my offensive reputation, and that's great. But at my heart and soul, I'm a defensive guy. Not many people know that because it's been 23, 24 years. But I still, while I don't coordinate the defense here at Gold Beach when I was coaching, it is still the defense that we developed, and my coaches use the same structure and things that I've used since 1991. Kind of kicked around Southern California, had a good time. Got my credential about the same time I met the woman who I was going to marry. Took a job, did a couple years, and then started applying. I figured, you know, I got 10 years, 11 years as an assistant, you know, and now it's time to apply for some head coaching jobs. And like most areas in the country, you know, I used to think it was just Orange County, but I've discovered it's everywhere. Orange County coaching is a good old boy network. Well, I brought a lot to the table, and I always ended up being a finalist because I didn't have any experience. They always chose the guy that had been fired at his previous job because he was 4 and 5 all the time, but had experience. Somebody knew him, and it's a good old boy network. And there's one in Oregon. I'm sure there's one in Virginia, and it's frustrating for young coaches. It is, you know, because I think, and I think the same argument can be made in the NFL. You keep recycling guys who haven't got it done because they have experience, but the experience is losing. And I encountered the good old boy network when I got to Oregon. So 1997 in August, my youngest child was born. And my wife said, get us out of here. You know, it's getting too crowded. It's getting too crazy. You know, you got to take the train to work every day. I live 7 miles from where we work, and sometimes it takes me 45 minutes to get there. She goes, get us out of here. So I wanted to kind of return to a rural setting, and I know it's hard for your listeners and viewers to believe that Southern California was ever rural, but I'm old enough that it was. I mean, Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, where I was born and raised, was basically citrus farmers and ranchers of Basque and Portuguese descent. And, you know, we rode our horses to the beach to go surfing. Those days are long gone. In fact, I tell the people from Oregon, all of their timber ruined where I live, so it's only fair that I come up here and screw with them a little bit. Kind of threw my hat into a job called Gold Beach because the beach attracted a surfer. Came up for an interview and said, wow, this is, it may not be God's country, but it's definitely God's vacation place. Moved a 4-month-old baby and a wife 900 miles from everything they knew to live on the coast in the woods in a rural part of Oregon. And we've been here for 24 years. And as my wife points out, I don't think we're leaving. Because I've been offered quite a few jobs and had some opportunities to go elsewhere. And she kind of laughs at me. She kind of says, have fun commuting back. I think that's tough for and it's tough for me. You know, you grow up in Southern California, you change jobs, you don't have to move houses, you just turn left on the freeway rather than right. I'm 45 minutes from the closest other high school. We're isolated. So, you know, taking a new job would mean moving. And we love our house, we love where we live. And while I love being a football coach, that's just one of the things I am. You know, I'm a husband, a father, an educator as well. So, my journey's brought me to Gold Beach, and for the 23 years, we got it rocking and rolling. I mean, it took a while. We had to deal with the good old boy network here, and I'm not always. In fact, I'm never politically correct. I kind of let the truth and what I feel, I speak out. I've had good friends say you need to wait 7 seconds, and I'm like, why? It's not going to change what I say in 7 seconds. But I've been here ever since, and it's good. I mean, no place is perfect. I can guarantee that, but we had a lot of success, and I'm very proud of that. But more than anything, I'm proud of the community and the kids and the parents that bought in to make it happen. Coaches get way too much credit when teams win, and they get far too much blame when teams lose. At the end of the day, it's kids and parents and community buying into your vision. So, we did a good job at that.
All right. Well, thank you for telling us your journey. And I've been following you on Twitter for quite a while. And
sorry.
Hey, I've enjoyed it because you've been very helpful to me, and you've been very helpful to a lot of other coaches as well. So you're very active on Twitter, especially with the hashtag high school football coaches and the hashtag dinosaur football coach. And you've been also very generous and openly sharing your the football tool chest. That's been very helpful as well. And coaches who haven't figured that out yet need to follow Coach and ask him about it.
Okay.
Could you kind of share the story of how all of this kind of got started for you?
Yeah, and I can't remember the year, but my eldest daughter, who a lot of you follow, said, "Hey, Dad, you got to get involved in social media. You got to promote your program. You got to." At that time, we were running probably one of the country's best team contact camps, and so I joined Twitter, and I use it. I use it as a tool to connect with coaches and network. Something that I never was good at without social media. I'm not the kind of guy that goes up to it at a clinic and grabs cards and drops names and hopes they get it. That's just not who I am. And my dad used to say, "God, you're not networking," and he was right. I wasn't. I was busy coaching and trying to win. Twitter, and I don't do Facebook because for a variety of reasons. But Twitter allows me to connect with a coaching world and create a network that's been very helpful to me. In the process of being on Twitter, I met somebody named Chris Fisher, who runs Texas Chat. I met him about the same time my eldest daughter decided to do grad school in Austin. And I kind of said, "Hey, dude, I'm sending you some sweatshirts and some stuff because you're now going to be my guardian in Texas since I don't live there." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And I participated in Texas Chat and had a good time. And then an Australian coach reached out to me and wanted some material that I had. And I didn't know how to get it to him because it was too big to email. And he goes, "Well, have you ever looked at Google Drive?" And I looked at Google Drive, and the light went off, and Chris Fisher and I started it. He, because of Texas Chat and other things he was doing, removed himself. It kind of fell onto me to continue. It's on my drive. I'm the one that pays as my wife points out, "You're paying $9 a month to help people." I go, "Yeah, think of it as giving to charity." We put $5 on the plate at church every week. I'm putting $9 in the plate every month to help coaches. So basically, Google Drive is designed to save marriages. I know what it's like to be a young coach. You feel like you got to go to a clinic every weekend. You feel you got to go to every chance you get and everything you get. And that's hard on a family. I mean, it is. I know it is. I've seen it firsthand. I know it firsthand. I've seen young coaches whose marriages have blown up because they can't balance being a husband and a coach and a father. And you got to balance them. And I'm not great at it. My wife and daughters will tell you I'm not always great at it, but I'm always working at trying to bring that balance. So if you can stay at home on a weekend and do some research, watch some film clips, watch a PowerPoint, and gain some knowledge for free, then I'm helping a profession I love. Because when I grew up, well, we didn't have social media, coaches would give you anything they want because they were passing on the game to the next generation. And I got no problem with people making money. A lot of guys are like, yeah, I got this system. And I think that's great. And I get it, because we don't make any money doing what we do. That's just not who I am. So I don't fault the people who, for this cost, you get this, and for cost, get you that. But I wanted to set something up free that kind of like was the Library of Congress, where we could collect as much valuable football resources and keep them to where people could go and visit them and learn, and we could pass the game on to future generations at no cost. And it's not perfect. It's tough to get guys to share, because everybody's offense is self-created and only they know it. And it's got all the little secrets that nobody knows. And it's like, come on, guy, give me a break. It's like my dad told me, I got all excited to go, have you seen Buddy Ryan's 46? And my dad says, yeah, you mean the wide tackle 6? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, he just changed the name of it and changed his personnel groupings. It's the wide tackle 6. And so I think once you let your ego go and it doesn't become about you and it becomes about your kids, your team, and the game, I think it makes you a better person and a better coach. And like I said, I'm not faulting the guys that do what they do, because I know what we make. I mean, they need, particularly if you've got a young family, you need to do that. You need to, heck, I don't know. I still take, Oregon gives you 10 cents for a can. So we collect cans. I mean, that's gas money for a month for me sometimes. So I get that. It's just not who I am. So the tool chest was designed for people to have a link, go and look at things. We don't have a lot of film because colleges wig out because of film. And the bottom line is I like watching college as much as everybody else, but I'm never going to have a defensive end that runs 4.5. So watching, Alabama, who can play their defensive end in a certain technique and stance because he runs a 4.5, doesn't do me any good. It does me much better to look at other high schools. I know that growing up, becoming a coach, and when I first moved to Gold Beach and we started, the program that I tried to copy and emulate and do was De La Salle. I'm a West Coast guy. I'm a Catholic school graduate. I grew up in a Trinity League. I've met Bob. I know quite a few guys on their staff, and you can't argue with their success. And people will say, well, they're not as good as they used to be. Well, nobody ever, it doesn't last forever, and they're still pretty darn good. But the fact is, they do an amazing job. And I wanted to emulate that. So we try to get guys to share film, but, high school coaches are pretty darn secretive and paranoid. Everybody in the state of Oregon knows what I'm going to run. They know where I'm going to run it. They know the technique. I don't really care. And we run it anyways, and we out-execute you, and you can't stop it. And that credit goes to my kids and my assistant coaches who teach the fundamentals and technique of a pretty simple offense and a little bit more complex defense, but do a good job. So, you know, and I'm a dinosaur. Well, I appreciate throwing the ball, and I think it's a thing of beauty, and I love the forward pass. I was a defensive coordinator in a run and shoot spread where guys were throwing 30, 40 times a game. And it doesn't help your defense know how to stop a physical team when all they see all week in practice is finesse. And I know there's going to be a guy out there that says, you know, we run the spread and, you know, my defense is physical. And I'm not saying there's not exceptions to the rules. You know, I mean, everybody can pull it off. I just think if I want my defense to be physical and stop the run, and I still think at the high school level, if you can stop the run, you're going to be successful. And so, you know, we run, you know, turn on ESPN Classics and pull up, you know, Nebraska from the 80s or Michigan or Ohio State from the 70s, and you're going to see a lot of what we do for a variety of reasons. The kids in Oregon take a great deal of pride in being outdoorsmen. They hunt, they fish. They don't spend a lot of time on social media. One of the things they don't do is play catch. And so throwing and catching the ball is not something that they come with a great deal of skill at. And so as a coach, you got to kind of choose, you know, what do I have time to develop as a skill? What do I not have time to have a skill? What is my environment like? I mean, we live in a rainforest. And in about 3 weeks, it's going to start raining. And we're going to get 120, 115 inches of rain in 4 or 5 months with heavy winds. And so, you know, come November, December playoff time, if you can't run the rock and stop somebody from running the rock, you're not going to be successful. I enjoy the college game as much as anybody else. Hell, I live in Oregon. You know, my daughter is a Duck alumni. You know, I watch Kelly. I'm watching Cristobal now. I love what they do. We can't do it here. I don't have those athletes. I have kids that bench press 350, power clean 275, and like to fight. And so we're going to run an offense that lets them be physical and lets them do the things that they've already bought into before I got here. And we just, so we, you know, we run the IBAC veer, and we run Coach Lambert's G and Tough from Washington from the 90s. And we get after it. Now, I do know how to throw the ball, and we can throw very effectively. And I can throw 60 times a game, and I can make that game go 5.5 hours and have officials hurt me, and I can give you all kinds of stats. But the 1 year that we run and shoot way back when I got, we threw for more yardage than everybody in the state, and we won 3 games. And my job as a head coach is to win games. And so we went to an offense that I was familiar with because I'm old enough. They ran it in high school where I was at, and tweaked it and adopted a little bit. When we started, we were split back like De La Salle and like Houston, where it was created, the veer was created. The guy recently passed away. The name's escaping me right now. But we ran out of split backs, but we just discovered over time that we always had a kid who was a true fullback. And we had a kid who really didn't like contact, but was really fast. He made really good tailbacks because they ran like hell not to get hit. So, you know, and it's what it's what we do. I mean, it consumes the clock. It helps my defense. I think as a head coach, I think you got to come up with an offense and defense that complement each other. You know, we're going to roll the dice and take a little chances on defense. So I can't roll the dice and take chances on offense because they're going to hurt each other. So, we'll roll the dice and gamble a little bit on defense, and we're pretty conservative, methodical on offense, and that's because they complement each other. So that's kind of where the tool chest is, and that's kind of the dinosaur. And I'm old. I mean, most guys when they're 61 aren't doing this anymore. They're golfing and fishing, and like I said, I stepped down last year, and I'm retired / sabbatical for a variety of reasons. I'll go on that maybe a little bit later, but that's not just who I am. That's who Gold Beach is. I mean, it's a persona that developed together. Does that make sense? So, yeah, we're pretty boring to watch. We'll run inside veer 36 times in a game, and my dad will go, "You'll never get a job somewhere else. You only run one play." And I'm like, "Well, all you guys raised me that if they can't stop and keep running it, so I do." And he goes, "Yeah, but you're kind of a little overkill there." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm a simple guy. I'm going to keep it simple." And I'll be honest with you, my kids like being physical. My kids like hammering people. They like the aspects of football that everybody's trying to get rid of. And we don't cheap shot and we don't hurt people, but we're going to pound on you. I mean, that's the attraction of the game. So that's what we do.
All right. You kind of mentioned Gold Beach a little bit there. And I will say that following you on Twitter, not just the old school offense and that kind of stuff, but you're consistently posting some of the most beautiful landscapes that I have seen online. And it's just like, I keep showing my wife, I'm like, "Hey, this is out there on the West Coast if you're interested." So could you kind of, what's it like to coach at a place like Gold Beach, and how is it different than, let's say, a more urban environment?
Yeah, it's Gold Beach is extremely isolated, and it is by far the most difficult coaching job I've ever had, because when you're isolated and you're small, you're unrealistic. If the Patriots were to come to town, my community would expect me to beat them by 3 touchdowns. They're from New England. They suck. There's an arrogance that small towns have, particularly ones that are isolated, and they're unrealistic. And I don't think it's just small towns. It's everywhere. You get interviewed by a panel, you get hired because they want you, and then you get there and they tell you no to everything you want to do. And it's like, well, what the hell did you hire me for? I got here in 97 and I had a blueprint. We were going to lift 4 days during the week during the summer. We're going to do this. We're going to lift off season. And I had all the good old boy network tell me, well, we don't lift in the off season. We don't lift in the summer. And I'm like, and you don't win either. And finally I had a group of kids in 2003 that started to buy in. And then I think it's important in rural towns, you got to get them out of rural towns. They're so used to swimming in a puddle of water that they think they're good. So you got to somehow force those kids to go swim in the ocean. So we loaded up 2 Suburbans and took all our seniors to Mater Dei. And we spent 9 days in Southern California so Coach Swift could surf in some warm water again and see my buddies. But the deal was, of the 9 days, 4 of them would have to be at Mater Dei. And at Mater Dei in July, practice starts at 7 in the morning and you're done at 11:30, and you're back in the evening at 6 or 7 for Pass League. And my kids discovered, because we live in a show me generation now. When I grew up, if a coach told you to do something, you believed him and you did it. Now a coach tells you to do something, you're like, yeah, right, sure, no one does that. You got to show the kids. So when they saw kids 120 kids to be exact, show up at a high school at 7 in the morning, stay till 11:30, working their fannies off and having fun. Then they said, wow, we should do this too. And so they came back, and I got all their parents in the cafeteria, and I said, hey, do me a favor. Quit wasting your time with petitions trying to get rid of me. Quit stuffing dead animals in my post office box, and let's just try something for a year. Is do everything I ask exactly the way I asked for a year, and if we lose, I'll leave. I go, but when Johnny comes home and sits at the dinner table and says, Coach Swift says I take a 6-inch step with my left foot and aim for the numbers, you who played for the old coach back in the 70s, shut your mouth. Because he's going to listen to you, as he should, because you're his father more than me, and you're undermining my program. Well, lo and behold, they all shut up, and we played in the state final that year. And then the guy who told me we don't weight lift during the summer would see me having coffee and go, why isn't the weight room open? Why aren't the kids lifting? And so I think good old boy networks are a little tougher in small, isolated rural towns as opposed they are to urban, because you can break it up better. In an urban community, if I wanted to hire a coach, I'd have 300 applicants and 100 of them would be qualified. If I apply for an assistant coach here, I get 0 applicants, and I'm finding a guy who played high school and enjoys the game and talking him into coach. And then me and my kids teach him how to coach the position he's going to coach. And we've turned out, I got to tell you, in the 23 years, we've developed some good teams, and we have developed some darn good coaches, but you don't get the hiring, no one's going to move to Gold Beach to teach in a school of 125 and spend 5 hours on a bus to go to games to coach football. It's not glamorous. 2 or 3 years ago, my alma mater survey was looking for a head coach, and people were trying to get me to apply and go back to Southern California. And it's Trinity League, man. You're on the front page, you're in the news all the time. It's glamorous. And my wife kind of looked at me, she goes, have fun commuting back, dude. And my father always taught me, don't go back to coach on where you went to school, because you'll expect it to be like it was when you were in school, and it never was. And I'm very, very proud to be a Servite alumni, and I'm very, very proud of my high school and their accomplishments. But they're not the same Servite that I was when I was there. And to go back and expect it to be, wouldn't it be fair to them, and it wouldn't be fair to me? And I don't want to live amongst that many people anymore. I think the other things about Gold Beach is, everybody talks about multiple athletes. Our kids are multiple athletes. We still have 2 and 3 year lettermen every year. We're really proud of that. It's one of the reasons we lift in the morning, so it doesn't interfere with anybody's practices in the afternoon. So I think in those ways it's different from an urban. In an urban, there's enough people that you don't hear the complaints as much. I've been here 23 years, and I can probably count on both my hands how many times I've gone to the store, because I'm not interested in being stopped in an aisleway and chewed on. Because no one ever stops in the aisleway and says, hey, nice job, coach, tough loss in the state finals. Hey, you get your ass ripped. And so, my wife goes to the store. My daughters goes. I really try to avoid going to the store. But it's good. I mean, let me tell you something. Nobody misses the games. If we got a playoff game and it's 7 hours away, it's a good time to rob a bank in Gold Beach on Saturday, because there ain't going to be anybody there. small towns do bandwagon better than anybody. So, that's been fun. And, you get to do parades when you go to the playoff game. You live in Southern California. They're not going to shut down Santa Ana, Edinger Boulevard for your high school to have a parade while they go to a playoff game. So, it's still, I tell my buddies in Texas, it's just like Texas football, and they think it's special, and it is special. But it's special because Texas has such a large middle class, and football is a middle class game that they get behind. Gold Beach was a middle class town, and they got behind it. I mean, you would have thought we were in Texas without the accents and a little more rain and some trees. So they both have their good features, and they both have their small. I don't. One of the things that I don't like is, well, you're a small school coach, you couldn't possibly coach a big school, or you coached in Idaho, you couldn't coach in Texas, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm coaching at a place with no assistants, no resources. I've made all my resources. I've created all my resources. And we've done things that nobody's done in Oregon. And you're telling me I can't do it in Texas, where they give you all those resources? Quit smoking that crap, dude. Nobody's that good. A little humble, little humility is, and I'm not knocking Texas. It's great football. I went down there, I watched it. But I think what makes it special is they got a huge middle class still. And so those people go to the games. One of the things that's changed about Gold Beach in 24 years here is we've lost our middle class and we've become a retirement community. And so the demographics of our high school have drastically changed, and that's changed the football program, and that's changed a lot of things. So, I think that's, and it's, your teams become an extension of your family in a small school. I see the kids every class period. Some of them have me 2 or 3 times a day. Some of them live in my neighborhood. It's different. And I don't know, do you live in the same community of the high school that you coach in?
Not right now.
I mean, and my dad raised me, said, you never want in the community that you coach in. And I disagree with him. I love living in this community. And look, they hated me the first 6 years. Holy cow, they egged my house. And I'm like, that's your problem. You got terrible arms. You can't even reach my house. So, I get it, but I love living it here because my kids can come to dinner at my house. I see them at church. I go to their weddings. I understand why my dad told me that, and I certainly understand why it's beneficial not to. In Gold Beach, it's worked really good for me and my family. So would it work elsewhere? I don't know.
All right. So I'm assuming you guys are not playing right now because of COVID.
Yeah.
All right. So what are some other things that COVID has changed for you guys in Oregon? Because right now here in Virginia, we're not playing either. Go ahead.
We're in Curry County. We only had 20 cases. It hasn't changed anything for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, our restaurants are open. Jerry's Jet Boats, which is a tour boat company that goes up the road, still has, 40 people on a boat all wearing masks. They go up to the restaurant where I work during the summer where I'm smoking food and they eat. I think we had our 22nd case today. But like every place, it's ratio and concerns and hospitals and science and doctors. And I don't have the right answer. I don't know if what we're doing is right. I don't know I was talking to a good friend of mine via Twitter, Chris Four, who's very active in helping coaches as well. And he was kind of upset with Pac-12 for making a hasty early decision. And he made a comment that that's bad leadership. And I'm like, no, that's not bad leadership. That's a bad decision. Because leadership means that no matter what decision you make, you're going to piss half the people off. That's the nature of being a leader. If you want to say it was a bad decision, that I agree with. He goes, well, they were listening to too much public opinion. And I'm like, what decisions made in the world today that doesn't take in public opinion? Do I think the Pac-12 made a mistake? I don't know. Do I think the ACC made a mistake? I don't know. But the ACC all of a sudden is coming out saying, if we don't have 8 teams, we can't finish the season. Virginia Tech has been postponed because of COVID. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a dumbass football coach. But I kind of have been raised not to argue with science and not to argue with the medical experts. And while I'm not happy about it, I don't have enough expertise to make a decision. I know that in South Carolina, a teacher who was 28 years old lost her life to the virus because that school had opened up. I can tell you what to run in 3rd and 2. I'm not making any decisions on the virus. I'm doing what I'm told. And I think one of the things we need to do, we've lost, as a nation, we've lost respect for authority, and you can see it everywhere. And while I don't agree with the governor's choices in Oregon, if I want my kids to respect my authority, I have to model respecting hers, respecting the president's, respecting that. It's not about whether I agree or disagree. Is they're duly elected, they have the authority. So I need to model respecting authority, because if I don't, how will my kids respect my authority over them? And so, I get it. I mean, I understand all the sides, and I want my kids in my classroom. I want to be playing football. I want to do all the things because that's what my heart wants to do. But my mind's smart enough to know that I don't have all those answers. I don't have a right to put a kid in harm's way. I can put a kid in harm's way in football because they have the expertise to teach them the techniques, the methods to keep them safe. I don't have any expertise in dealing with this virus. I don't like wearing a mask, but I wear one. Oregon right now is scheduled to play football in March. Instead of a 9-game schedule, we're looking at 7-game schedules. So we'll see. And we're distance learning till the election day. And then we'll find out what happens after that. I really think if you understand the West, everybody in the nation views the West as liberal, and it really isn't. The major cities on the West Coast are very liberal, and they control all the political clout. Fresno is just like Oklahoma. Gold Beach is just like Texas. I mean, we're very conservative. They have conservative values in that. But everybody looks at the West and say, oh, you guys are liberal. You guys are all teaching socialism. And that's not true. We're dominated by huge population centers, and population centers have a tendency to be liberal. And if you look at the state of Oregon, any state election, the whole state will be voting no, except for a little thin blue line from Portland to Salem to Eugene. But that's enough votes because it's popular vote when you get to states and the election happens. I have this argument all the time, and I really need to quit arguing on politics on Twitter because it gives me heartburn. But we need to do away with the Electoral College. And I'm like, well, then how are you going to keep Idaho and South Dakota in the Union? because California's population is bigger than 17 states combined. So I would like to see the Electoral College come to state elections. You got to win counties to make it happen. I'll be dead and gone. That'll never happen, but it's nice because right now, all the politics of states in the country are run by metropolitan areas with no regard for rural America. And rural America every now and then rises up and says, we're going to exert our power. And they did in the last election. And whether you agree with it or not, that was an ignored group of states that said, we're going to go this direction because you're not listening to us. So, that's what COVID's done. I still take my wife out every Thursday night for date night, go to a couple restaurants. The nice thing about fishing, you can go up to a gravel bar and you're all by yourself anyways. You go in a boat, you're out there with a couple guys you all know, so you're safe there. And so, I don't know. I don't have the answers.
All right. So leadership, you mentioned leadership a little bit. Could you kind of describe your own personal leadership style to everybody?
Yeah, I'm definitely, I'm a George S. Patton, General Sherman type guy. Everybody wants me when it's crisis. And they're not so happy with me when they're not a crisis. I'm a fire, brimstone, in your face, old style coach. But I will tell you this, I get away with being that. And I think any coach can get away with being a tough taskmaster, in your face, General Patton type guy, if the kids know how much you love them first. When they sincerely know that you love them like they're your own, then you can push them to limits that a lot of people can't push kids to because they haven't created those connections with those kids. I'm a taskmaster. I'm extremely impatient. My kids call it swift spin. I'll lose my mind in practice and the kids just start giggling because someone's getting lit up. And then, a kid will get chewed out by me. And my dad says, I don't know where you learned it. He says, but you can undress a kid better than anyone I've seen. But 3 seconds, 4 seconds later, I got my arm around the kid saying, it's not about you. It's about the way you're performing. And my kids, and I've taught my team and I've taught my assistant coaches, there is one whip on this team, and that's me. And the rest of you better be nurture and builders and brothers. So it's kind of funny, a kid will get chewed out by me, and then the team will immediately rally behind him going, welcome to the club. Nice job. You're one of us now. If he's chewing on you, you're on the field because he's not chewing on anybody who's standing on the sidelines next to him. I wouldn't say I'm totally old school because we're only in pads 2 days a week. We only really practice 4 days a week. We don't meet 8 hours on Sunday and 8 hours on Saturday. If I want to sit around and bullshit, I'm going to go home and bullshit with the wife and married, and she likes football watch. When I grew up in Southern California, I worked on some great programs. You got there at 7 in the morning on Saturday and worked till 7 at night. And you got there after church on Sunday and worked to 5 at night. And I think that's great. But an awful lot of that time was sitting around BS doing nothing. And we prepare hard. But it's football, guys. I'm not building a spaceship. So we spend, during the football season, I don't go to church. I'll usually go Saturday night because as a Catholic, our church has a Saturday night mass. But then I get here about 8, 9 in the morning, and I'll break down Friday night's film and do the work and do the stats. I'll start breaking down the opponent and start working on a scouting report. About 1 o'clock, my assistant coaches show up from church. We spend 2 or 3 hours looking at game film, watching, developing a game plan, doing that. The kids come in at 4 o'clock. We lift for an hour, watch film for an hour, and send them home. And then we'll finalize the game plan Monday afternoon, have a short practice, and get the kids on the way. And that works here. That doesn't mean it will work everywhere, but I would tell coaches, most of us say that our wives are our best friends. Well, then you need to treat her like that. I remember sitting around for 2 or 3 hours at high schools, just bullshit, eating pizza, watching college games, or working. No, we're not. We're bullshitting. And I want to be home with my wife doing that. She's better looking than most of you guys. That's my philosophy. I keep it simple. We all read John Wooden, but we don't put John Wooden to practice much. John Wooden says it doesn't matter what the other team runs. It matters about your fundamentals and how well you run what we do. And we really adopted that. I mean, my kids need to know what fronts and they need to know what they're going to see. But we teach our system to where they know how to block, they know how to line up fundamentally against anything because we've taught that. So while they need to see film and why they need scouting reports that they can review and get good at it, we don't need to spend the time here at Gold Beach. That's not to say if I went somewhere else, I wouldn't change. I think good coaches change with the setting that they're in. Well, you're a veer coach. Yeah, in Gold Beach. If I went over to the Valley where they play on turf, it doesn't rain, and they play catch and do that, I'd probably run. No, I wouldn't. But I might run something different. I think it was you that put the post on Twitter. How many colleges should be running the option who aren't? Well, it's more complicated than that. It's tough to sell option to high school kids because every junior in America that has a couple stars is going to go to the NFL. You know that, and the only thing getting in his way is me and my stupid offense. So you got to be able to sell that to kids. Boosters don't like that. Fans don't like it because we don't live in a patient world anymore. If you don't hit the ground running and you're winning 7 games, you could get fired. So do I think some schools should be running the option, old school, like they should be? Yeah, but I'm not there. I don't know the situation, and I'm not arrogant enough to think that I should impose my beliefs on somebody else's. I'm pretty humble. I've been blessed. The stars have lined up. I got the right wife. I got the right kids. I got the right community. I got the right dog. Everything lined up, and I'm not going to argue with that. Did I do a good job? Yeah, I did a good job. But you got to have buy-in. You got to have kids. Everything's got to line up, and it lined up great for 12 years. And then it got a little misaligned. Didn't get misaligned because of the kids, didn't get misaligned by me. All those young coaches out here need to listen to this. You're only as successful as your superintendent and administration wants you to be. If they're not interested in you winning state titles, you ain't gonna win them. And that's a tough lesson. When I got here, I had ex-football coaches who were administrators. I had ex-football coaches who were principals. They wanted to win state titles, so we were all willing to do it. We don't have those administrators now. I got a band guy that's a superintendent. He's a great guy. He's a great educator. Winning a state title in athletics ain't him. I got a principal who's a great guy, good educator, but he's into drama. So, telling those guys what you need to do and what you have to do to be successful, it does. They don't get it. They don't get it. And, they should, but they don't. So, and I would tell a young coach, you got to interview the school that's interviewing you as much as they're interviewing you. Because, there's a reason they're looking for a coach every other year. So, that's kind of, my philosophy is, it's a Rubik's Cube, man. You got to keep shuffling around and finding something until it works, and pray a lot. Do a lot of praying.
Yeah, I completely agree. Coach, thank you for coming on. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm going to have one last question for you today.
Go for it.
There's a lot of coaches out there who, like us, aren't playing football this fall. Maybe we get in the spring. There might not be a whole lot of optimism to go around. Do you have any final words of wisdom or final thoughts for those coaches?
I got a couple of things for you. Mm-hmm. We keep telling our kids they have to learn how to deal with adversity. They got to learn how to deal with adverse situations. You got to model it as a coach. It sucks. I mean, we should be coaching football. We should be having fun with our kids. Should be high-fiving and having team meals and doing all that. But this pandemic is an adverse situation, and we got to model dealing with it. If you look at Twitter every other day, there's something, kids don't know how to deal with adversity. Right now there's a whole lot of coaches on Twitter that don't know how to deal with it either. And then try to make it positive. The time that I've been allowed to spend with my family, my wife, it has been great. I get a chance. Usually this time of year, I don't get to salmon fish. Now I can salmon fish and put more salmon in the freezer. If I hunted, I could probably hunt. I think you got to try to put, same thing we tell the kids, try to put a positive on it. The time that I've spent with my kids, the time that I've spent with my youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, the time I've had to network with relations, the opportunity to hang out with my dad for 2 weeks before he passed. I mean, let's be honest. If football season was going to happen and I was coaching, I'd fly down for a day and a half to see my dad. He'd pass away, and then I'd hustle back to coach. But, sister says, hey, he's fading. So I got to go spend 2 weeks, with him that I can't ever get back. So I understand your pain. I understand the adversity. Do exactly what we tell our kids. Deal with the adversity and put a positive spin on it. And look, I tell myself that daily too, guys. I mean, because I'm saying that's what we need to do doesn't mean I'm perfect at it. I'm about as imperfect as you can get. But I'm a work in progress still. So, and that's what I want to be, a work in progress.
All right, Coach. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you very much.
Hey, I appreciate coming on. Thank you for having me.
All right. This has been the Armchair Coaching Podcast, and this is Coach Sheffer signing off.